Ever feel like your brain's running a marathon, but in a million different directions at once?
Totally. Like it's a constant battle for your attention.
Exactly. Our phones, our inboxes, the never-ending to-do list, everything's vying for a piece of our focus.
And then we beat ourselves up for not being able to like magically zone in on one thing at a time.
It's like we've forgotten how to focus.
Well, guess what? We're not alone.
Mhm.
And the good news is, it's a skill you can actually learn to, well, master.
That's where our deep dive comes in. Today, we're tackling the book Master Your Focus by Thibaut Meurisse.
Oh, I loved that book. It's not just about, trying harder. Maurice breaks down this idea of focus into three distinct types: inner, outer, and other focus.
Three different types. I've got to admit, I've never thought about it like that before. It's always just felt like focus, period. Tell me more about these three types.
Sure. It all comes down to where exactly we're directing our attention. Inner focus, that's all about tuning into that internal world. Your thoughts, feelings, that inner voice we all have. It's what you need to tap into for things like meditating or even just like planning out your day.
So if I'm struggling to quiet my mind during meditation, it's not just a willpower issue. It's my inner focus that needs work.
Exactly. Then you've got outer focus, which is all about paying attention to the physical world around you. Think driving, cooking, even just having a conversation. They all require a different kind of focus, right?
Okay, that makes sense. But what about this other focus? It sounds very, well, other-centered.
It is. It's all about being present with another person, really listening, empathizing, actually trying to see things from their point of view. That's other focus in action.
Wow, I like that. So it's not just about trying to have more focus. It's about understanding what type of focus we need in a given moment.
Exactly. And here's the best part. Marissa argues that just like a muscle, our ability to focus can actually be strengthened with practice.
Okay, now that's encouraging. But realistically, how much control do we really have over our own focus? I mean, we live in a world that's basically designed to distract us.
You're not wrong, but we actually have more control than you might think.
Really?
Yeah. Maurice dives into this concept of deep work, which is all about reaching a state of like super intense concentration.
Deep work. Okay, that sounds equal parts exhilarating and terrifying.
Right. But when you get into that flow state, time just seems to disappear and you become totally absorbed in whatever you're doing. And the result is incredible productivity and creativity.
So you're saying it's possible to get more done in like a couple of focused hours than in an entire scattered day.
Exactly. That's the power of deep work.
Okay, I'm sold. But let's be honest. How do we actually achieve that level of focus in a world, like you said, that is literally built to distract us? Those pings, dings, and breaking news alerts we were talking about earlier.
Oh, absolutely. And Maurice gets that. He actually identifies three major culprits that completely sabotage our focus: multitasking, technology, and our environment.
Okay, let's unpack those. Let's start with multitasking, because I have to admit, I used to wear that as a badge of honor. Is it really that bad?
Well, the truth is, our brains just aren't wired to effectively juggle multiple complex tasks at once. What we think of as multitasking is often just rapid task switching, which honestly drains our mental energy and actually leads to more mistakes.
So it's like trying to listen to two podcasts at the same time. You might catch bits and pieces of each one, but you're not fully absorbing either.
Exactly. You end up with this jumbled mess instead of a clear understanding. And then there's, of course, technology. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a powerful tool, but
It can also be a major distraction black hole. Tell me about it.
right. Maurice isn't anti-technology, but he stresses how important it is to set boundaries. Little things like turning off those non-essential notifications or even just designating specific times for checking emails can be total game changers.
It's about reclaiming control instead of letting our devices dictate our every move, right?
Exactly. And then last but not least, we've got our environment. Because believe it or not, the spaces we inhabit have a huge impact on our ability to focus.
You're totally right.
Yeah, think about it. That workspace of yours, is it cluttered? Noisy? Does it have natural light? All of these things can silently be killing our concentration without us even realizing it.
So it's not just about silencing our phones. It's about creating a space that actually encourages focus.
Absolutely. We can dive deeper into creating that perfect focus sanctuary a bit later. But first, I want to introduce you to this fascinating concept Maurice talks about called attention residue.
Attention residue. Okay, that sounds almost test sticky.
Yeah.
Like it's something you need a mental scrub brush for.
That's such a great way to put it. Imagine like you just got off a stressful work call and then you immediately have to switch gears and help your kid with their homework.
Oh, I'd be a mess.
Oh,
I wouldn't know whether to channel my inner drill sergeant or collapse in exhaustion.
Right, but your mind is still caught up in the emotions and thoughts from that previous situation. And that lingering mental clutter, that's what Maurice calls attention residue.
So how do we combat this attention residue? Do we just have to power through it?
That's where Maurice introduces this idea of transition rituals.
Transition rituals, it's like we're performing a ceremony for our minds. I like it.
Right. Maurice talks about incorporating these short, intentional breaks into your day to help kind of reset and shift your focus.
So what are we talking about here? Give me some examples. What kind of rituals?
Well, it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It could be something as simple as like a 5-minute walk, maybe a few minutes of mindful breathing, or even just like stepping away from your desk to listen to a favorite song.
Anything to break up the day.
Exactly. The key is to create that separation between tasks.
Like hitting the reset button.
Yes, instead of just like powering through your to-do list with this, frazzled mind.
Totally. Which reminds me, we were talking about some of Muris's other practical productivity hacks, and I am all about actionable strategies. So what else did he recommend?
Oh, he had some good ones. One that really stood out to me was this idea of the 80-20 rule, which you might have heard of as the Pareto principle.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. It's the idea that 80% of our results come from just 20% of our efforts, right?
Exactly. But I think the tricky part is figuring out how to actually apply that in our daily lives.
Totally. Because it's a cool concept, but how do we actually use it?
Right. It's about figuring out the vital few tasks or activities that truly move the needle for you. And this is key, prioritizing them, like ruthlessly prioritizing them.
Okay, so give me an example.
So let's say instead of getting bogged down responding to like every single email the second it comes in, what if you picked like the top 3 that if you answered thoughtfully would make the biggest impact on your day? Or if you're working on a big project, what are the crucial 20% of tasks that'll actually drive the majority of the results?
I like that. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things. What else? What else did he have?
Well, he's also a big fan of identifying your MITs, your most important tasks.
Your MIPs?
Yeah, your most important tasks, and then tackling them first thing in the morning, when you have the most energy.
Yes. I love that. It's like that saying, eat the frog first,
Yeah.
get that big thing out of the way, and then the rest of the day feels so much easier.
Exactly. And that sense of accomplishment that you get early on, it can totally create this ripple effect of productivity throughout the rest of your day.
It's like you're setting the tone,
Yes,
a focused and productive tone. I'm into it.
it's a good one.
Yeah.
Another technique Maurice talks about is time blocking, which is essentially scheduling blocks of time for specific tasks or types of work.
So it's like instead of just reacting to whatever pops up in my inbox, I'm intentionally planning my day around the work that actually matters.
Yes, exactly. You're taking control of your time instead of letting it control you.
It's about being intentional.
Yes, intentional with your energy and your focus. But, here's the thing about all these productivity hacks. They're great. They can be super effective in the short term. But Meurisse really stresses that true, lasting focus, it's not just about, checking things off a list. It's about cultivating the sustainable approach.
So it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. How do we actually do that? Build those lasting focus muscles.
It's about understanding yourself, understanding your energy, your rhythms, knowing when to say no, when to set boundaries, and then having the self-discipline to actually stick to them, which, let's be honest, can be hard.
It's about being kind to ourselves too, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing that we all have limits and that building this kind of sustainable focus takes time and it takes practice. Speaking of which, we were talking about those transition rituals earlier and how they can help clear that mental clutter. Does Meurisse connect that at all to this idea of building lasting focus?
He totally does. He actually says that these rituals are key to maintaining focus throughout your day, not just when you're switching between tasks. They're about building in those moments of mental rest and rejuvenation. And honestly, that's essential for preventing burnout and just staying sharp.
So we're not just hitting the refresh button between tasks. We're building in these mini recharges throughout the day.
Exactly.
It's like taking your brain for a spa day.
I love that. It's so true. And remember those focus-friendly environments we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
Well, Meurisse doesn't just mention them in passing. He actually dedicates a good chunk of the book to how our surroundings can really impact our ability to focus.
So it's not just about what's going on inside our heads, it's about the physical space we're in as well.
Exactly. And honestly, it goes way deeper than you might think.
Okay, now you have to tell me more. What are some of the things he recommends? Seriously, spill it. What kind of environmental tweaks are we talking about here? What can we actually do to create a space that, actually helps us focus?
Well, for starters, that dimly lit room where you love to, like, curl up with a good book. Yeah, probably not the best spot for, like, tackling your to-do list.
You're so right.
Meurice actually talks about how the right lighting can actually make a huge difference in how alert and focused we feel.
I've definitely noticed that I feel way more energized and focused in bright, naturally lit spaces, but I never really put two and two together.
Right. It's amazing how much of an impact it has, and it's not just about brightness either. Maurice also gets into how even the color of our walls can, like, subtly mess with our mood and productivity.
Okay, now that's interesting. Tell me more.
So, like, cool blues and greens, those tend to be more calming and can help with focus, while warmer tones like yellows and oranges can actually be more stimulating.
So maybe I should rethink that bright red accent wall in my office.
It might be worth a shot. Honestly, the best thing you can do is just experiment a bit, see what colors you feel best in. But there is one thing Marissa is very clear about.
What's that?
Clutter is the enemy.
Oh my gosh, tell me about it. A messy desk equals a messy mind. Am I right?
100%. Marissa explains that clutter actually competes for our attention. Like, it creates this kind of visual chaos that just makes it so much harder to focus.
Ugh, it's the worst.
Yeah, so he suggests finding a designated space for everything, keeping your surfaces clear, and maybe even incorporating some elements of nature, like bring in a plant or two.
Yeah, a little greenery.
Exactly. Just little things to promote a sense of calm and actually make the space feel more, like, welcoming to a focused mind.
It's about creating a sanctuary,
Yes.
a place where your mind can finally, relax and do its best work.
Exactly. And honestly, that's what I love most about Maurice's approach. He takes all these practical strategies but connects them back to, like, a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like how our minds actually work. It's not just about getting things done. It's about designing a life that really supports us, our well-being, a life that lets us actually thrive.
It's about being intentional with our time, our energy, our environment, all of it, so we can really show up as our best selves no matter what we're doing.
Yes. Perfectly said.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground today.
We
We
did.
talked about Meurisse's 3 different types of focus. We dug into those sneaky little distractions that are constantly sabotaging our focus. We even uncovered the secrets to creating that perfect, focus-friendly environment.
And we did it all in, like, what, 20 minutes?
I know, but if there's just one thing I hope you take away from our deep dive today, it's this: focus. It's not about being perfect. It's about progress, not perfection. It's about figuring out what works for you.
Yes. 1,000 times yes. So as you go about your day, I want you to ask yourself, what really resonated with you today? What are you curious to try? What one small step can you take today to start experiencing the power of enhanced focus in your own life?
Because let's be honest, when we can really master our focus, the possibilities are pretty much endless.
That's it for today's deep dive into the incredible world of focus. Until next time, stay focused, friends.